I'm going to speak in common with a lot of contributors from this morning, the ones I heard and even people from the floor. I titled my contribution, Reaffirm the Post-War European Social Pact. And I think for any political party that wants to be, get into power or whatever, focus on that, and I think you'll do it. Just to remind ourselves that Europe, the social and economic progress that has been under the European Union has been absolutely remarkable. Living standards, housing, health and people's security have increased immeasurably. There's been a point I'd like to make though in my brief talk, is that there was a consensus between conservatives and socialists and whatever other political people there were that wealth would be shared, but recently that has broken down, and the conservatives are now of the view that the cake isn't growing anymore and we're going to keep it for ourselves. And the European Social Pact is breaking down. Now, my view is that the best way to grow national income, notice I don't use the word growth, is through social solidarity, education, investment, efficient public services and equitable incomes. But Europe is under the control still of neoliberals. I hate the word, but it just is. It's a type of extreme conservative. It's the guys who financialized the European economy that Eckhart spoke about. And they're still running the place, both politically, they're in power, and the Commission, unfortunately, a lot of the officials are absolute neoliberals, including the ones in the Troika that are in Ireland. This neoliberal vision, in my view, is very myopic, and it's at odds with the old conservative view of the European Social Compact that we had in the past. And I believe that rebuilding the European social model must be the priority of all progressive forces, parties, unions, whatever, in Europe. Many Europeans fear that governments are neglecting citizens and are obsessed with appeasing financial markets. And basically, it appears essentially that the European Social Compact is dying or dead, that Europe is being run as a single market solely with the interests, as one speaker from the floor said this morning, for corporations. And our government is the same, obsessed with low corporation tax. They haven't asked for 1 red cent, not 1 red cent from corporate Ireland, which is where our trouble began in our corporate banking system. Now, I have to say, and I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be straight if I wasn't to say that the Green Party in government failed on the social compact. You cut the minimum wage and you also sought internal devaluation of wages. Happily, you failed on both of those things. There was a 12% cut in the minimum wage. It was a terrible thing to do, and if I was you guys, I'd look to your trade union roots to keep your feet on the ground and keep a basic modicum of decency. Because cutting the social wage, which by the way isn't of great interest to trade unionists, because we represent people above that, but it does concern us and our anger is just palpable. If there had been internal devaluation, that's cutting wages, not profits, but wages, and that was the plan of the last government. They started by cutting the public sector wages. You remember the SRI said, oh, private sector wages will follow. Now, I've been around a long time, and I was pretty sure they wouldn't, and they haven't followed. Wages overall haven't fallen. And even when you include the public sector, wages per hour are much the same. And that's a good thing, because domestic demand has fallen by 25.7% since peak. And if wages had fallen, because wages are a big part of national income, our domestic demand would be even lower than it is today. So that's a good thing, not just for the workers that I represent, the 600,000 workers in this republic. Anyway, Mario Draghi, who you know, runs the ECB, unelected, very narrow terms of reference, keep inflation down and bugger the rest of you. He said, Europe's vaunted social model is already gone, in the Wall Street Journal in February of this year. So you have it from a key player in Europe. As far as he's concerned, it's gone and forget it. Now, I think if he's right, and I'm beginning to think he might be, this is very bad. The other point, of course, is that European leaders, the European elite, have really let us down. They're a bunch of incompetents. They just, okay, they designed the euro very badly, but they haven't got their act together yet. And the euro is still in danger, and the whole European project is still in danger. And I personally am quite passionate about the European project, as I think many here are as well. And they're still pursuing austerity. Our own government is pursuing it with almost pleasure, which is, I just think, I actually thought that, seeing that it isn't working, they'd realise, because, you know, GNP has fallen by about 12% from peak. Okay, you can say the peak was a bit high, it was a bubble, but GNP, which is a better measure, has fallen by 16%, and as I said, domestic demand has fallen by a quarter, and it's still falling. It's still falling, and is forecast by the OECD to fall next year. We have serious problems, and this is what the European social project should be addressing. We now have a huge polarization in jobs, between cool jobs and crap jobs, and we've got to address that. I'll go quickly. Myself and Eckhart might disagree on one thing, that I basically say that we have 1.8 million people at work in this small state, of which 20% are working part-time. We have staggering debts, both the bank debts and our own national debt that's growing. We're not going to be able to pay it. As the economist Michael Hudson, who advised the Icelandic government, said, it's just kind of an obvious statement, statements of obviousness, debts that can't be repaid won't be repaid, and we're not going to be able to repay this. And the only way is through European social solidarity. And how that's to be done, you know, I don't know, but I know we're not doing it very well. We've made a good bit of progress, but not enough, and we're very slow on it. When we meet the Troika, the trade unions too, met them 8 times, and when we first met them in late 2010, we said that Ireland has a lot of core strengths in its economy and society, and actually it really has. Sometimes we forget that we have a lot going for us. We have a very good fundamental economy, you know, if we didn't have this mess on top. But we said if we go too far and too fast, we'll be in we actually said a 10-year recession. And it's looking more and more like that. We're in the 5th year. And I'm not sure if we're going to have growth next year. Every time the main bodies all revise down their figures. Another point I have to make it, the idea of a 2-speed Europe, I think it's a bad one. Another point I'd like to make, because I'm actually doing some serious theoretical work over some months on this, is throughout the developed world, the share in national income going to labour is declining, and it's declined for 40 years. And it's continued, it's gone up a bit, funnily, during the crisis for workers, but this is a very serious issue. It's caused by globalization, and advanced technology, falling prices in transport, the manufacturers going to China and all that. But it has big implications for domestic demand, actually, in all of the countries, for demand, for people buying stuff, because the 1%, and those Occupy people weren't wrong, they caught people's imagination. We have a global elite like now that is unlike the barons in the old days, in feudal times. At least they gave a few bob to the poor. These guys don't even pay tax. And as you know, corporations are less and less likely to pay taxes now. Just to show you, The share in national income in Germany in '73 was 63%. It's fallen to 58% last year, and in Ireland it fell from 63% to just over half last year, 52.5%. And my final point, and this is a number of points, and this is a controversial point, I think a common fiscal policy and a key policy is a banking union as well. A fiscal policy will be a key to addressing inequality and getting an EU-wide stimulus program, because if the EU was run by progressives, they would go for an EU-wide stimulus, and that would solve a lot of our problems here and build a lot of things that we need built. But if we're heading towards fiscal union, we're going to have to address our low corporation tax in this country, which some have actually described, and I can't believe this, it's the cornerstone of our industrial policy. Well, if that's the cornerstone of our industrial policy, we're in worse trouble than you think we're in. And basically what it means is that we have to negotiate on our low corporation tax, probably not towards harmonisation, but coordination with the union, as part of a deal on the socialised bank debts as we move towards greater fiscal union. But I'll end by saying any progressives, whatever the differences, and we're always great at finding the differences rather than the commonality, but we really should focus on the European social model, looking after our old, looking after all that stuff. But it is, as that excellent book by, the name's just escaped me now, two people, the Spirit Level, Pickett and Wilkinson. I mean, they show that we all know, but more equal societies are better functioning societies. The only thing is, we can all believe that, it won't matter a jot, because the people with money, they're not going to share it with you. You have to take it from them. You do that nicely through taxes. Thank you.